more difficult for people to understand and is just a little bit beyond most of the mediations that people are conducting. However, I can demonstrate to you very easily, if you need convincing, that every conflict has an emotional component. And I think I can prove this to you, that you don't have a conflict without emotion, without what we call negative emotions. And therefore, resolving the conflict means doing something with that negative emotion. That's another thing that they want. Even if you do all those three things, you stop the fighting, you settle the issues, you resolve the underlying emotional issues, there is still left over the memory of what happened to you, and you want to get rid of that. How do you let go of the memory of what happened to you? The answer is the word forgiveness. What is forgiveness? It's not physical, it's not mental, it's not emotional, or rather it may be those things, but it's something else in addition. What is it that you let go with? What do you let go of? And the answer, I believe, is spirit, meaning energy. Not spirit in the sense in which it might be used here in this room, meaning God or religion, but spirit in the practical sense, and that's why I think of it as practical spirituality, of attitude, intention, holding on to the things that have happened to you. But then we have developed, I have developed myself, 5 basic techniques for working with forgiveness. And I'll just run through them really quickly so that you have a sense of what they are. Then I'll come back to the main point. First, remember exactly what happened and how it felt to you. So it's not forgive and forget, because that gives permission for it to happen again. It's remember, and then separate the person from the problem. Be hard on the problem and soft on the person. And that's what forgiveness fundamentally is about. Secondly, imagine what must have occurred to the other person and how they must have felt. Because this is not trivial, and it's not something that you do without thinking about what other people might have experienced. If you can't find them inside yourself, again, you'll be more tempted to do harm to them than if you can. The third sounds completely counterintuitive, and that is list all the reasons you can think of for not forgiving them, and all the expectations that you had of them that they did not meet. Let's make this real, okay? If you try to tell yourself that it didn't matter what was done to you, it's not going to work, because it does matter what was done to you. And forgiveness is a choice not to validate them, but to release yourself from the burden of your own false expectations, to release yourself from a past that is, in fact, dominating your future, meaning making it impossible for you to have the future that you want, for you to choose, for you to be free. Jean-Paul Sartre says, freedom is what you do with what's been done to you. Isn't that nice? And therefore, we get to step 4. Step 4 is in 2 parts. After you've listed all the things that you really don't want to forgive them for, all the rotten things they did to you, either choose to release yourself from each of those things, or, here's the crunch, why this is not touchy-feely. Identify what it's going to cost you to hold on to them. And it's going to cost you. What is it going to cost you? It's going to cost you your life. It's going to cost you your ability to love another person. It's going to cost you your ability to be present in the present moment, to actually show up for each conversation like it matters. That's what it will cost you. And that's really serious. That's an immense cost. And frankly, they aren't worth it. Okay? So you can just put it that way. What forgiveness is reclaiming your life for yourself. Just saying, I'm not going to give it to you anymore. That's over. And then finally, to execute what I call a ritual of release, completion, and closure. If you want more on this, you can read either The Crossroads of Conflict or Mediating Dangerously, where there's a little bit of this in it. So now why are we talking about forgiveness? Because that's a deeper conversation that people want to have in order to let go of their conflict. What's deeper than forgiveness? Well, if you think about this, we've described these 4 different levels, but there's another one. And you get there by asking this question. What is the very first part of you personally, that shuts down when you have a conflict? And what is the very last part of you that opens up again to this other person? What is it for you? Anybody have a sense of this? Any offers, volunteers? What's the last part of you that opens up again? You have a conflict with your spouse, your significant other, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, and you've now resolved it, essentially, but there's one little piece of you that isn't open yet.
He said your heart.
Huh?
He said your heart.
Your heart?
Yes.
Who said? Yeah. Yeah, your wallet. It's your heart, right? Isn't this right? Doesn't this feel right to you? Now, which of these conversations would you rather have? One about stopping the fighting, one about the issues, one about, the underlying emotions, one about forgiveness, or one about opening your heart? Well, you'd like to have all of them, but isn't that last one a killer? Isn't that the one you really want to have? Wouldn't you love to have an open-hearted conversation with the person that you've been in conflict with? Heart-to-heart communication? Wow, wouldn't that be something? Now, can we do it? Absolutely. And that's what I wrote the book to show, is that you can do it. Now, there's one more conversation, it turns out, that you can have that isn't included in this. And I missed this for a long time. But I realized it when I began thinking about writing this book. And it's the one that leads to Mediators Beyond Borders. And that is the heart piece. You can think of the spirit piece as forgiveness. The heart piece is reconciliation. The next piece, what's beyond reconciliation? The answer is prevention. Meaning redesigning the system that got you into this conflict in the first place so it doesn't happen again to anybody else. Isn't that the final conversation that we need to have? I believe so. And that's why what Mediators Beyond Borders needs to look at is how to have that systems conversation. But truthfully, you can have it in every conflict. All you have to do is say, what could have been done within this family, within this organization, within this community to have either prevented this conflict or made it easier to handle? If you ask the combatants that question, they will unite around a common list of things that could have been done. Right? This is what will happen. Go to any workplace, a supervisor and an employee arguing with each other, fighting about something. But if you say, what could this company have done that could have prevented this conflict or made it easier, they will know. And they'll come forward with this. And they'll give you a list, and you write it down on a flip chart, and then you ask a clincher question. What's going to happen to this list? If the answer is nothing, that's okay, but that doesn't prevent any future conflict from happening. Once you've created the list, there's a hidden obligation. And the obligation is for us, the people who are in this argument to start with, to take it to our boss and try to make it real. Isn't that right? Isn't that a powerful thing to do? And when they do that, their conflict is actually completely 100% over. Okay? Now, they can slip back into it, particularly if you didn't do the work in the other sections or the other levels. So it all kind of fits together. But anyway, this is what I was trying to say before in answer to your question. I hope this is way more than you asked for.
No, it is not.
No, it isn't? Oh, okay, great. You're very welcome. Do we have more time, TJ? Are there any more questions or comments or things like this? But that's the reason for the book, The
Lenny
Crossroads
has
of Conflict. Next to the last chapter in The Crossroads of Conflict is toward a unified